Welcome to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Steve, I don't think we really wanted the international break to come, did we? We were getting into some decent rhythm, some good winning shows as well. And it does feel like that this campaign. It feels a bit staccato, doesn't it?
Really frustrated by the international break. I never wanted it. I felt like I was in a good rhythm assessing the club teams. I don't think anyone really wanted it. It just felt like such an awkward time, and now we've got to reset again. Yeah, not happy about it, Dan, at all. I really could have done without this international break, to be brutally honest with you.
Having said all that, Steve and James, we found some winners on the live show when it came to the international break. And here's the thing. People complain about the international breaks, but do you want to know something? International breaks haven't changed. It's the same dates. Has been for ages and ages and ages. It's everything else that's built up around it that causes the chaos. Same breaks, same times in the calendar. We shouldn't complain too much, but we do. But James, you had a good day, as Steve did, as indeed all of our cappers did when we were on the live show over the last few days. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, we did. We picked out some good winners on the international games in Europe and also in South America. I quite like the timing of the international break. I realise I'm in a minority in saying that. I just think it's the more logical time to play qualifiers, really, in the autumn before we get to the business end of the season when league titles and big tournaments are being decided. But I take Steve's point completely. From a betting point of view, as opposed to purely from being a soccer fan point of view, it is tricky because it definitely breaks up the rhythm. And doing the research for this week's show, you have to remind yourself what happened. It feels like a long time ago, but it's only obviously a couple of weeks since the last round of matches. So it can be tricky. But, I think we'll be fine. And I think we've got some good picks coming up on today's show.
Yes, I think we have. Yeah, Will White called them glorified friendlies and then reeled off like 5 shot on target picks that all cash. So his opinion might have changed them. Steve, any trends off the back of international breaks? Do we look for teams that have had, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 players away, or players that have been in South America? Are the teams that don't pick it up straight away? Is it something you look for, or is it just game by game for you?
I definitely look at the internationals that have been away at certain clubs. For example, there's one team in LaLiga and one team in Bundesliga who didn't have a single international away in this particular window. The most that I saw, I didn't look at Premier League to be fair, but the most I saw I think was Leverkusen with 15. So it varies, and also each club can sort of. It's also like, what about the South American players? What about the African players? They've had a lot of travelling. Anyone who's been following Victor Boniface's Twitter account in the last week, you just forget about the actual, the physical side, the mental turmoil for some of these players that they have to go through. So it's such an individual thing. The first round back after any international break, it's always tricky, in my opinion. This is maybe not quite as hard as the one in September, but it's still really awkward. And if surprise results happen, there's an obvious excuse you can give.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Inter and Milan both had 12 players away. Como had 3, but 1 in Argentina, 1 in Gambia, 1 in Iraq. So it's not necessarily the number of players. Sometimes it's where they go and, of course, how important they are to the team. We will get into the plays for you shortly. Don't panic. If you're tailing us or indeed fading us, let us know. Share your Bet Rivers bet slip. Share your picks in the comments below on our YouTube channel. And, of course, you can tag us in at Because We Win on X. We are going to kick off in France with a game featuring Marseille, and the boys have both got official plays here. No real surprise, I hear you say. We've got James' 2-unit play, and we've also got Steve's hot dog here. They're away at Montpellier. Montpellier plus 330. This is the big game on Sunday in France, so it's 2:45 Eastern. Marseille minus 134. The draw at plus 300. Before we get your plays, I just want to get both of your thoughts on Marseille generally from a betting point of view, because at the start of the season, obviously you guys know French football really well, and Marseille, I guess, in particular as far as Steve is concerned. But James, De Zerbi came in, we thought it was going to be overs, there was a lot of overs, did the bookmakers react, and then suddenly there was unders and they weren't winning games. I thought they were going to be an easy team to predict, but I guess the fact that you guys are finding bets with Marseille means that bookmakers aren't, because you're finding better prices. Are they not as predictable as maybe I first thought they would be? Maybe bettors first thought that they would be, do you think?
Yeah, possibly. They have gone off the boil a bit. They started the season really well, like you say, Dan. They've picked up only 1 point from their last two matches, and both winnable matches, especially the last one. They drew 1-1 at home to Angers. I think that's where the doubt and uncertainty has crept in from the bookmakers, not quite sure what to make of Marseille. I differ from that view. I think they're still a top three team in France. I think that, yes, they have wobbled a bit, but a little bit like some of the players I've had in Serie A this season, or Milan and Juventus, I think you have to stick with the good teams because they will come good again. I think they've had problems in defence, which my view is they're self-inflicted to a degree from De Zerbi changing things around. But the top line view from me, to answer your question, Dan, is I think they're still a good team, and I think they should be predictable over the course of the season, especially against some of the weaker sides in the division, and they're certainly facing one of those this weekend.
Yeah, before we get you to unit play, and indeed Steve's hot dog, Steve, just briefly on Marseille generally, are they more predictable? Do you still think, because we were quite all in on them sort of being best of the rest in France, weren't we?
We know how Roberto De Zerbi is going to play. We know what his teams do. So I still think they're quite predictable, and I still actually think they'll finish second place this season. I can't waver from that. Monaco are always a bit of a stumbling block, and I really struggle to read that team. I can't ever predict Monaco, right? But Marseille logically should be certainly at least top three. The last two results, there's reasons why they ended 0-1 and 1-1. And I think you've got to, as always, take it by a matchup basis on what opponent they're facing as well.
Okay, well, it's Montpellier away. We've got 2 unit play. We've got a hot dog. Let's get the 2 unit play from James first of all. This is your best bet of the weekend. Comes in France. Montpellier, Marseille. What is it, sir?
Yeah, my bet is Marseille on the Asian handicap here, minus 0.75 on the Asian handicap. Away to Montpellier at minus 106. So as long as Marseille win this game, you're going to make a profit. If they win by a single goal, then half your stakes will win. If they go on and win by a couple of goals, then your full stakes will win. Yeah, I think Marseille have probably had a wake-up call with those last two games, especially the last one, which was the one they drew 1-1 at home to Angers. Not good enough, no doubt about that. But they haven't had everybody away on international duty. Some of their good players will have stayed. Some have gone, but some will have stayed. So they've had a good long period of time to work on things in training. And I think, as we've mentioned, that they are, on paper, for me, definitely a top 3 team in France and probably a top 2 team. They should really be aiming for that runners-up spot. And I think we've got a good chance of seeing that from them this weekend. I'm not going to say this is an easy game, but it's one of the easier trips Marseille face. Montpellier is not a long way away. They generally can count on really good support here. Sometimes even in the home sections where the tickets don't always sell out. So they should enjoy really good support. And one of the key factors for me here, Dan, on backing Marseille was actually Montpellier. So for people who haven't followed them closely, they have had problems since pre-season. We had very credible media reports in pre-season that the players weren't happy with one or two things with regards to training and some of the standards that were being set. They didn't really strengthen their squad or team in the window because of lack of money. And they've started the season really poorly. Defensively, they've been weak. And their team news, as we're recording this, doesn't look great either this weekend. It looks like they're going to be short of quite a number of defenders as well. So what is actually quite a weak defence, even when they're at full strength, looks like it's going to be under strength this weekend. So there are a stack of reasons why this is the perfect game, actually, for Marseille to get back on track. I think, as I say, that short journey, generally they enjoy playing here. The fact that they've got a point to prove, all is in their favour. And I mentioned earlier, I've sort of done a couple of bets in Serie A, the same as this one with Milan and with Juventus. When you have the top quality teams who've had a couple of underperforming weeks, that's when I like to get with them, because I don't see Marseille here producing a third consecutive below par performance. Maybe I'd have doubts about that if they were facing a top side and steer clear of them. But I think Montpellier will be the ideal opponents for them this weekend. I think they've got a great chance here. So, yeah, don't worry too much about what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Take it on board. But Marseille are still a top side, and I think they should prove it this weekend. So that's why I went with them. On the Asian handicap, it's my 2-unit pick, and it's minus 0.75 at minus 106.
We mentioned it's Steve's hot dog feature, this particular fixture. So we're going overs, and I guess you're sort of buying into a little bit what James was saying about Marseille sort of bouncing back and putting on a performance? Because I presume they've got to do a bit of the heavy lifting with this one, Steve.
Well, there's a couple of games across Europe this week where I honestly could have had all my picks in the same game, and this was one of them. I very nearly had my 2-unit selection in this contest, and the 2-unit pick would have been over 3 Asian goals at -117. I've decided to go down the German route, usually the safer bet. Just ask the English FA. So I've gone. Yeah, I've had to get a little bit creative with the hot dog. I'm going over 4 Asian goals here at +255. Now, for anyone who wants to back over 3.5, that's a good price at +138. Even over 4.5, by the way, is I think it's +355 as well. I just think this is a perfect matchup for Marseille. They couldn't have handpicked a better opponent here because Montpellier's defence is horrendous. It's the worst in the league. They conceded more goals than anyone else. Only Saint-Etienne have a worse XGA, and the main reason is because they've had a lot of injuries at the back, suspensions as well this week, and some of their games have been ridiculously open. They can only win shootouts. The last round, James had a hot dog winner in Montpellier game against Rams, and God, I mean, it was 4-2. It could have ended 7-3. It was crazy open. Marseille, I think, can cover this goal line on their own, or at least push the goal line on their own. But Montpellier have got some underrated players, in attack. Accor Adams, Taser Vanier, Kazri's in there. From the Marseille perspective, Neil Maupay is suspended, which means Eli Vahi is going to be playing up front. And, I mean, he's +240 to score any time. That's a massive price in this game, I'm telling you. I think
he's let us down before.
I think he gets a big game here, Vahi. I think it's a perfect game for him. I think a couple of goals for Eli Vahi in this match. It's, for me, going to be a pretty open contest. I think Marseille are going to win quite easily. I love James's pick as well. Montpellier are not in a good way. They're not in a good state at all. They can't keep it tight. Even if they wanted to park the bus and keep it tight, they can't do that. They've got to. The only way they're getting points is by scoring a few goals themselves. So I think a hot dog here, Asian line of over 4 goals at +255. A full push if 4 goals are scored exactly. And we get a winner if there's 5 or more. But yeah, I love the goals here. For those who want to be conservative, over 3 goals as well. Looks a really good bet. So I think Marseille win this something like 4-1. I really think they roar back strongly here.
Well, that'll do for both of our plays. Let's stay in France with Le Havre against Lyon. Le Havre +270, Lyon -104. They've been nibbled at just a little bit. Sticky start to the season for Lyon as last year, James, but back on track an awfully lot quicker this year than they were last term. I don't know if bookmakers are still sort of not rating them, underrating them. Lyon have bounced back with a really good run, and you fancy them to get another victory here.
Yeah, they're my pick to win. My 1-unit pick this weekend is Lyon away at Le Havre. They're available at +102 to do that. So it's a straight pick here on Lyon on the money line. I was really surprised to find them at plus money here. I was sure they were going to be minus money. It was a real pleasant surprise when I saw that price. Could have been my 2-unit pick. Those reasons I outlined on Montpellier was why I went with the Marseille pick instead for 2 units. But I think this is a strong play on Lyon. And you're right, they started the season fairly poorly. I would actually break down the results for anybody who's looking at the League One table at the moment and wonders about Lyon because they've got 3 defeats already on the board. The manager himself said that in August they weren't ready for the start of the season. When the window was open, there was a lot of transfer uncertainty at Lyon, both in terms of who was coming in and going out. And they lost their first 2 games of the campaign. If you write off August, things look a lot better for Lyon. It's 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat from their last 5. They had a big win away at Rangers as well in Europe. And I think that is actually a better guide to what we're likely to see from Lyon this weekend because things have settled down a little bit since the window closed. There is huge competition for places at Lyon in attack in particular. And that for me is absolutely key to this game this weekend. They've got 8 players going for 3, maybe 4 places in attack. And all 8 of them, honestly, they would walk into a lot of sides in League One. There will be players on the bench this weekend, maybe, like George Mikau-Tads, the Georgia striker. Saïd Benrahma, a former Premier League player, Wilfried Zaha, the same. These are guys who aren't guaranteed starters at Lyon at the moment because there's so much quality in the side. Now, I think that might be a problem against some teams in the top of the table when they play them, because there's maybe a lack of a settled starting 11 at Lyon. But I think against the weaker sides in the division, such as Le Havre, who they're facing this weekend, there's so much firepower in the Lyon squad, both in the starting 11 and off the bench. If the manager needs it, they should be able to win these games. And I think sometimes they're going to blow some of these teams away, actually, if they find their feet and they find their rhythm in the match. So for me, Lyon are still a work in progress to a degree. They don't, as I say, have a settled starting 11 at the moment. But the amount of quality they've got in the final third, both in the starting 11 and on the bench, means that they should get wins against the division's weaker sides. They're certainly facing one here. Le Havre started pretty well, but have struggled since. I've been really unimpressed with them, to be honest, in the last few weeks. I think it would take a huge underperformance here from Lyon to not win the game. So I'm strongly favouring them to get the win here. They should do. And I think that plus money price on them, plus 102, is really too good to overlook.
Let's continue with one or two leans here. We've got one from James and one from Steve. We'll do Steve's first here because this is a straightforward overs lean, Steve, and it's in the Auxerre-Reims game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to admit defeat here. Pre-season, I said that Rams are going to be involved in a lot of unders this year. It's not going to happen. 5 out of 7 over 2.5 goals. And they're playing a different style to how I thought they would do. So I'm kind of changing my opinion on how they're going to be this year. I think on stats, this really should be an overs game. Over 2.5 goals at minus 130. Probably more because of Auxerre in a way. They've got goals in them, but they don't seem to be able to defend very well. And if we look at actually Rams's underlying metrics, they're in the top 6 for expected goals, that's a surprise to me. But they're also in the bottom 7 for expected goals against. So when I said at the start of the season they're going to this boring team 1-0, 0-0. Now I've got that completely wrong. The manager's come in here and fair play to him. He's kind of adapted his own style. So I think both sides are more overish. And I thought this goal line might be around 3, to be honest. So I quite like over 2.5 here.
Yeah, it's a lean. And we've got a shot on target lean as well from James. There's always a clamour from James's adoring public to have pretty much a whole show on shots on target, let alone a little section. But we have got a lean, and it's in the Saint Etienne game. They are taking on Lens, James.
They are, and the pick is on Zuri Davitashvili, the Georgia international, to have over 0.5 shots on target, which is available at plus 155 as we are recording the show today. As always, I've been through every single shot on target price in League One this weekend. This is the best price available, in my opinion. It's too big on Davitashvili for a couple of reasons. The first is he started the season really well in what has been a pretty difficult start to the season for Saint Etienne, newly promoted. Haven't played that well. They've had a couple of really bad days. They obviously lost 8-0 at Nice, which was the worst day so far. But the bright spark has been Davitashvili, who came in from Bordeaux over the summer for about €6 million. And I've liked what I've seen from him. He can play out wide in attack. He can play kind of behind the main striker. But what he is doing, and that's crucial for our pick, is he is getting into positions to have shots on target. And he got a hat-trick in their last win, 3-1 against Auxerre. So what you're looking at here is a big plus money price on a player who's just scored a hat-trick. And all we need him to do is have over 0.5 shots on target. This really, honestly, for me, should be nearer to plus 100, maybe even minus money, minus 105, something like that. It looks really big to me because he's not the main striker. He doesn't play as a number 9. He plays either out wide or behind the main striker. But Saint Etienne are looking to Davitashvili at the moment to get the goals and to have attempts on goal. And on that basis, I think he'll be really up for this game. As I say, he's just got a hat-trick. There's every reason to think he'll at least have a go on goal here. So get this price while you can would be my advice, because I think at plus 155, it's way too big. And he's my main shot on target pick in League One this weekend.
That wraps up France. Let's move to Spain. Athletic Club against Espanyol, the first we're going to talk about here with Steve, 10:15 a.m. Sunday Eastern. Worries me a little bit, this one, Steve, your selection here. Athletic Club are the short price favourites at minus 215. Espanyol are 6-1 shots here. And although you could look at a table and think, one pushing for European places, one battling against a drop, there's only 4 points between the two. And I'm not 100% certain if Nico Williams is gonna make it for this one. He didn't play for Spain, didn't he? But obviously I'm questioning the Athletic Club slant here because that's the way that you're going for your play.
Yeah, the bet is Athletic Club Bilbao -1 on the Asian handicap, -118. So if they win the game, we're not going to lose any money. Full push there if it's a 1-goal win. And I think they're going to have far too much for Espanyol. I'm not worried at all here. As far as I'm aware, Williams is going to play. I was doing my research last night, and a few prominent Bilbao accounts suggest that he's going to start the match. Espanyol are not very good, in my opinion, especially defensively. If we look at their defensive metrics this season, they're really poor. Only Las Palmas have a worse expected goals against. They've had a big overperformance defensively. The goalkeepers had a few good games. And, let's remember they're a newly promoted team. And this is a very difficult place to go in Bilbao. And do you know what? Every time I look at the international break in La Liga, teams, not many players actually are on international duty for Spanish clubs. It's really weird. Bilbao only had 2 players actually on active duty, which is very low. Espanyol only had 2 as well, so it's there's no advantage there. But I think the point is that I think Athletic Club would have had a very strong international break, able to work on a few things, and I don't think they'll be affected by rhythm or anything like that. Won 12 out of 19 games at home last season. They're usually pretty reliable against the poor teams at home. They're usually pretty reliable at home, full stop, really. Let's remember this is a team in Europa League. They're one of the better teams in the division. And I think there's a clear golfing class. I expected the handicap here probably to be knocking on the door of -1.5, if I'm being brutally honest. So when I'm seeing line value, up to 2 lines of value, I can't really ignore it. And there's certainly a few bets are on my shortlist for La Liga this week, as we're going to talk about soon. But this had to be the best bet for me in La Liga. It's my 1 unit selection of the week. To be quite honest, I would happily go 2 units on this as well. I really like Athletic Bilbao. This is the early kickoff, by the way, on Saturday. And I always like home teams in that, especially in La Liga. Athletic Club Bilbao for me. I'm not going to overthink about this one. I think they're the much better team, and at very least should get the win against, for me, quite a poor Espanyol. -1 Asian handicap at -118.
That is the 1 unit play from Steve in Spain. I may well have got the kickoff time wrong. Is it Saturday, you say, this one, Steve? We think
It is on 19th, Saturday.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think I said Sunday. Steve's right. I'm wrong. Probably wrong about about being concerned about this one as well. Let's rattle through some leans that Steve's got in Spain here. We've got quite a few, so we'll get through these in as quick as we can. But some really good ones, I think, here. Osasuna Real Betis, first of all. Steve, what do you like in this one?
Osasuna Tino bet at -107. Nearly had them as my hot dog, Osasuna, but I would have had to go -0.75 on the Asian handicap to fulfill the criteria, which was stretching it. But Osasuna have won their last 4 at home. This looks like it's a difficult place to go again suddenly in Pamplona. Beat Barcelona here 4-2. That was a very eye-catching win. I went against them earlier in the season and I got done up, deservedly. So I quite respect Osasuna, and I think Betis, I've got a problem with Betis. I just don't think they score enough goals. That concerns me about Real Betis, but they're not a bad team either. This is why it's only a lean. And a draw is quite possible. So the Tino bet is the best security here if you're going to be taking Osasuna.
Sevilla Barcelona. This is a good one for me. Sevilla, people keep telling me on a bit of a downward curve, but they did win the derby, albeit fortunately not so long ago. But they're taking a Barcelona side on Sunday, and Barcelona could be without some significant personnel here, Steve. You're getting with Sevilla on the Asian line.
Listen, I think Sevilla are not a bad team. They're okay. They're nothing special. But it's a great time to play Barcelona. You mentioned there could be some personnel missing. But look ahead to what Barcelona have got to play this week. They've got Bayern Munich in the Champions League. And then next weekend, it's El Clasico away to Real Madrid. I think they might overlook Sevilla a little bit. And the handicap on Sevilla is +1.5. I think they can stay within that handicap and at worst lose by 1 goal. I do like what Barcelona are doing this year, though. So I think there's a much better feeling around the club. So again, this is why this one's only a lean. And if things go wrong for Sevilla, they could get a battering. You know what I mean? But logically, it's a good spot, I think, to oppose Barcelona, considering what is ahead for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We were talking to Rory Barlow, of course, our Spanish correspondent who lives out in Madrid, off air the other day when we were recording one of our live shows. And I was putting to him, shouldn't Barcelona be favourites to win La Liga? And he was saying, well, no, not really, because Real Madrid is still there and it's only got to click for them. And Barcelona are probably playing above what they are going to be playing for most of the season. And young players, you always think there's going to be a bit of regression. I mean, Real Madrid -177, Barca +135. I mean, he put me off Barcelona, Rory. I don't know if you were thinking the same way when we were speaking to him the other day.
Oh, I still think Real Madrid will win the league. Yeah, I do. I think just over the whole season, the Galacticos have got it. You know what I mean? And they know how to win it. So over over a 38 game period, I would back Real Madrid to do it. And I think Barcelona's game against Osasuna showed their deficiencies. I think there'll be some shootouts that they'll lose, some random games where they just shoot themselves in the foot a bit more porous at the back. But I don't know, use the word naive, but it felt like that against Osasuna. So, but they've got a lot of goals in them, Barcelona, this version of them, compared to the last 2 years.
Having said all that, you think a fade, and again, this is just a lead, but you want to fade Real Madrid at Celta Vigo this weekend?
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was seeing the news over here in the UK that a famous bookmaker, Barry Dennis, died. Famous on coming on UK TV for horse racing, and he always had this Bismarck every weekend. You remember it, Dan? Barry's Bismarck. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to take a leaf out of his book here and sort of fade a team. Let's call it, I don't know, Steve Stinker or something. A team, basically, I don't want to get involved in. It's not necessarily a specific bet against them. But Real Madrid here, I think this weekend are going to catch a lot of bettors out. I think they're quite a tempting price actually against Celta Vigo. On over here you can get like 1.6 on the decimal market, which might feel quite big. But I want nothing to do with them here. I think Celta Vigo are a decent side, home especially. They've looked good, won 3 out of 5. Put up a very good fight against Atletico Madrid recently. And again, Real Madrid, I think they're going to be looking ahead. It's El Clasico next weekend. They are coming off the back of an international break. They've got Dortmund in midweek in the Champions League. That was the final last year. I just think it's a great spot to oppose Real Madrid, really. So, on handicaps, I wouldn't be looking at them. Even on the money line, I wouldn't be looking at them. It's just a fade. Basically, my fade of the week. We had this last year towards the end of the shows, didn't we? And I might look to bring it back. It might be a 1 week thing if Real Madrid absolutely rock up and smash them. But fade of the week for me, Real Madrid. I want nothing to do with them. Celta Vigo are not a bad side, Dan, this season at home. This is like a cup final for them, and I think Real might be a bit sloppy. I could see a draw. I think this is going to end a draw.
Yeah, 1 or 2 players could be missing as well. Danny Carvalho is out for the season, as we know. Missed a couple of matches this season, haven't kept a clean sheet in either of them. And Claudio Giraldez, the Celta Vigo coach,
the other thing, Dan, honestly, right? How convincing have Real Madrid been in any match this season? There's not been many.
Well, not at all. Not at all.
Playing that well.
We've talked about it on the show, and it's like I want to oppose them in the title race. I've backed Atleti. That's not going so well, and we were chatting to Rory about it, chatting to Will White about it as well. And but Real Madrid are still there, and you just think Barcelona are playing as well as they possibly can at the moment, and Real Madrid are not. But we'll see how that one goes for us. 41 La Liga games unbeaten, Real Madrid. The record is 43. So obviously, if they avoid defeat against Celta Vigo this weekend, then it sets them up for equaling Barcelona's record against Barcelona.
That's mad.
Week,
so take your draw and move on. That's what I say to them.
Yeah, but I think you're right, and I think we've talked about Celta Vigo a bit on the show as well this season. They're exciting to watch. They throw a few punches, don't they? They are ambitious and front-footed. You know, they're an interesting
much.
team. So that's a fade of Real Madrid. Have a look at that. See if you want to side against them somehow. Maybe it's just Celta Vigo scoring the first goal, or just both teams to score, or a handicap play. It'd be interesting to see how they get on. Real Madrid are the favourites for La Liga, but some big games for both of the big two in Spain over the course of next 10 days or so. As we're recording on a Thursday. Let's get to Italy and bring James back in here, because we've got not only James's hot dog in Italy, but also James's same game parlay. James is on same game parlay. How many same game? Steve, did you nail the same game parlay last time? I can't remember.
No, I was close. Off the
You were
post
close.
from Calimundo. James is the SGP master. I don't think I'm very good on SGPs, personally. So I'll leave it in the master's hands. I'm glad that he's on
James is that. Yeah, I know, Steve, you've been massively on. I think one leg has let you down on a couple of occasions. James has been absolutely fun. Anyway, we'll get to James SGP shortly, but we're going to do the Juventus-Lazio game first of all, which features James's hot dog here. I hope I've got the kickoff times right. I get these wrong every single week. 2:45 Eastern Saturday, I hope. Check on the BetRivers website for Juve-Lazio here. Juve been profitable for us this season, James. You've highlighted them correctly an awful lot here, but this is a bit of a deviation because you're going on a goals line for your hot dog here. Now, Juve looked at the stats. Juve average goals per game 1.57. That's both teams involved, and Lazio 3.57. So, what gives here? Is it Juve pulling you down or Lazio pulling you up? What's the play? What's the hot dog?
It's Lazio pulling me up, Dan, this weekend. The hot dog play is Juventus versus Lazio over 3 goals at plus 240. I looked long and hard for a hot dog this weekend. Actually, the more I looked at this, the more it rose to the top. So with this pick over 3 goals, if there are exactly 3 goals in the game, you'll get your stakes back. If there are more than 3 goals, you'll win the bet. You can only lose if there are 2 goals or fewer in the game. And I suppose people looking at Juventus's results will think, well, hang on, what's he on about here with going overs? Because they had a stack of clean sheets earlier in the season. And I understand that they have defended generally very well, but there are a couple of reasons I'm starting to feel their defence will struggle to keep up that sort of form. The first is just watching their games recently. The defence has started to wobble a little bit. They conceded a penalty against Cagliari last time out, a 1-1 draw in a game that they should have won. They had a stack of chances, but they didn't take and then got caught out at the end. They conceded a couple of goals against Leipzig in the Champions League before that. They've lost Bremer from the defence for the season. He's been ruled out for the season. The players did a tribute to him, holding up a shirt after they scored in the last match. That's a loss. They're having to sort of reshape the back four a little bit at the moment. So I don't think their tremendous defensive record so far will hold. I think we will start to see them concede more goals. And going the other way, they didn't take their chances against Cagliari, but they created an awful lot of them. And I think the last few games, I should say, we've seen Vlahovic come back into scoring form for them. I think they'll be really keen to win this, having dropped points in that game at home to Cagliari. So I'm expecting a really positive performance from a Juventus side who may be a little bit weaker at the back. And then if you look at Lazio, Dan, their stats are very heavily in favour of goals. You've mentioned the average goals per game count for Lazio is really high there, over 3.5. And all 9 of their games, not just in Serie A, but in Europe as well, have had 3 or more goals in them. So with this bet on all Lazio's matches, at the very least, you'd have got your stakes back. You wouldn't have had any losing bets yet. So I think Lazio can contribute to an open game here. And I don't think they'll be scared of Juventus. I think, if they go behind, I think they're likely to come out and have a go back. So I'm expecting a fairly open game here. I like the fact you've got the safety net with the over 3 goals pick. That means you get your stakes back if there are exactly 3. I like the fact you can only lose if there are 2 goals or fewer. And I think at that price, plus 240, I think you've got a pretty good chance here of at least, avoiding losing anything. So it's my hot dog pick, expecting an open game. And I think plus 240 are great odds.
I don't know about you, Steve, but when we set the hot dog to plus 200 or bigger this season, because it was plus 180 or bigger, wasn't it, last year? But you guys just seem to be going way over 200 with your hot dog.
Well, yeah.
Are you conscious? Are you conscious of it? Is it? Oh, crikey! I can't do a plus 185 plus 190 this season. So I'm just going to go way above 200. Are you conscious of knocking it out there?
Do you know what I'll say? I think there's a lot of very good bets between the plus 160 and plus 195 range. So it's a bit annoying that I feel I've had to miss out this year
Right.
on that. Like Osasuna money line, I think was plus 180. I would have took that as a hot dog perhaps this week, but I can't because it's not, the criteria's gone up. By the way, that Juventus last match, how on earth did they not at least win the game? That was one of the worst beats. We've had a few bad beats this year, and that was a shocker. That was one of the best bets of the whole season on Vlahovic's miss. My gosh.
Yeah.
I would have scored that with my bad ankle.
Same game parlay, Roma Inter. What we're building here, James, I think you've hit the last two, if not the last three. You are the same game parlay master. Really good dojo on same game parlays. Incidentally, with Neil and Nigel, if you've not watched that, it is absolute must watch. Really good insight or certainly explanation about how it sort of come about. Anyway, this week, James, Roma interview.
Yeah, so 3 parts to the same game parlay here. The first is over 1.5 goals. The beauty of a same game parlay is you can maybe set the line a little bit lower than you would if you were just having a single. Over 1.5 goals has cashed in 12 of 14 games that these two sides have played in Serie A so far this season. 5 on 7 for Roma, 7 out of 7 have cashed for Inter. The second part of the same game parlay is Inter most corners. Now, anyone who wants to do a single on this match, they should probably look at the corners bet because there's a big difference here between these two sides on corners so far this season. Inter are winning over 8 corners a game. Their corner supremacy per game is nearly 4. Roma are winning just over 4 corners a game, and their corner supremacy per game is under 1. So there should be a real big advantage here for Inter. I know they're away from home, but I don't actually think that makes any difference in terms of if you look at how the corners have fallen. So Inter most corners is the second leg of the parlay. And the third is on Artem Dovbyk of Roma to have over 0.5 shots on target, the Ukraine international. Started the season pretty slowly at Roma. He's come into form now. He's on 3 goals. He's managed a shot on target in 2 of his last 3 starts. So if you add him in, it will push the parlay price up to plus 180. Now, we should say on Dovbyk, who scored actually for Ukraine during the international break. He's come back from that with a slight knee problem. So keep an eye on the team news for him. He might not be in the starting lineup, although the latest reports are Roma are hoping he will. You can always take him out. That will mean the price drops to, I think, minus 115, which is a lot shorter. But yeah, if he's not playing, he's not playing, right? So keep an eye on it. But we would have Dovbyk in there at the over 0.5 shots on target market if he starts. And if he does with the other two, then you're going to get plus 180. And I think all 3 of these, in terms of individual picks, kind of justify themselves. They're all really short. Put them in the parlay and you'll get plus 180.
And very quickly, we have got a lean, and it's another overs play in Milan Udinese, James.
Yes, I'm going over 3 goals here. Milan Udinese minus 103. Milan have been really unpredictable, very entertaining this season. 7 out of 7 games for them in Serie A so far this season have hit 3 or more goals. I think they'll set the tone by doing what they've done all season, which is attack really well and defend pretty poorly. And Udinese, interestingly, they've been involved in some high-scoring matches when they've played some of the division's better sides. They lost 3-2 against Inter. They lost 3-0 against Roma. They beat Lazio 2-1. So they've shown they can contribute to a high-scoring game. I'd be surprised if there were only 2 goals or fewer here. So I think the Asian line at over 3 goals, minus 103, pretty good price.
Let's get to Germany. We've got Steve's 2-unit play coming your way. Steve's 2-unit play has hit the last 3 shows. All 3 have been in Germany. The last 2 have featured Wolfsburg. But the line continues to be value, Steve, because this is your best play of the weekend. It's Wolfsburg against Bremen. Wolfsburg are even money to win the game, and you're going overs again.
Well, I think Wolfsburg are a very underrated team in the goals market for whatever reason, and the 2-unit play is over 2.75 goals at minus 112. I nearly had this as just a straight over 2.5 goals, actually, which is now minus 143. Wouldn't want to put off anyone with that, but look, the same thing applies with what I've said recently with Wolfsburg. The last 4 of their games have gone over 2.5. The last 3 have gone over 3.5. And the return to form of Jonas Vint is... I nearly had 3 picks in this game. I could have had all 3 of my picks in this game. Jonas Vint was going to be the hot dog anytime scorer, potentially.
what
at
sort
plus
of price?
240. Yeah, around
Yeah.
the plus 200 range. He was left out of the side early on in the season. It seems like he had a chat with the manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, got back in the team, scored a brace last time out, scored against Stuttgart. That's a massive boost. If you get him back firing, I mean, they're capable of, covering this goal line on their own, you know what I mean? But Werder Bremen are an interesting team away from home, They haven't scored a goal at home yet. But away from home, their results of a 2-2 draw, a 2-1 win, and a crazy 4-3 win at Hoffenheim. They were 3-0 down after 20 minutes. It might have been less than that. And they came back they were level by half time. And they won the game. It was against 10 men. But Werder Bremen away from home, it seems to suit them better. Maybe there's more space. Teams not respect him enough. Starger got a hat-trick in that game. And they've got Keke Top as well, who scored a few goals for them this season. I think the game is screaming for goals. I looked at over 3.5 here as the potential hot dog as well. That is now plus 188. I mentioned in that range you often get a lot of good bets. But yeah, just for the simple over 2-unit play, it's no surprise I'm sticking with the Bundesliga. There's a lot of goals scored in this league this season. And there's some stupid goal lines. We're getting nearly over 4 goals in some matches for the lines, which is, I'm not going to get near that. But it seems every week there's at least 1 or 2 really generous goal lines, which are lower than they should be. And this is one of them. Wolfsburg against Werder Bremen, over 2.75 goals at minus 112. That's my 2-unit play for the week.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it is low. I mean, when you posted the pickup, I thought it might have been a bit of a mistake because you've had to go a little bit higher with some of your plays, 3 and 3.25. But this is 2.75 and at minus 112, a value play. Steve's best bet of the weekend, Wolfsburg against Bremen. And we've got a lean in Germany to finish off, Steve. And this is a little bit of a theme for you over the course of the European action this weekend because you're fading the big teams and you're fading the biggest of all when it comes to the Bundesliga, and that is Bayern as they face Stuttgart.
I think the top 2 in Bundesliga might not win this weekend. Leipzig, I've been big on them recently. They're away to Mainz, and I did look at them. But they're never a good team after international breaks because they have a lot of players away, RB Leipzig. So I don't like them against Mainz, and I don't like Bayern Munich here against Stuttgart. I think the handicap on Bayern is minus 1.5, which I think is just too much. Stuttgart are a very, very well coached side. I've said that before numerous occasions. And they're very capable of staying within 1 goal. Bayern have got a huge game in midweek against Barcelona away in the Champions League. And I think they might be distracted by it a bit, to be honest. Stuttgart obviously playing as well against Juventus, but I think the Champions League kind of means a bit more to Bayern, especially after a loss in the previous round. And I think Stuttgart can go toe-to-toe with them. I quite like the goals here as well. But we've got a goal line really between 3.75 and 4, which is it's a little bit too high. After an international break, I can't be going over 4 goals. But I do think this will be quite an open contest. I could see something like a 2-2 draw. Stuttgart beat Bayern in the last match 3-1 back end of last season. They did lose here 3-0 last year, but I mean, Vincent Kompany's obviously proven himself really well so far here, but Unai Emery did a job on him. Xabi Alonso, again, did quite a good job on him, I thought. And they even dropped points against Frankfurt last time out. So I'm not sure Bayern even win the game. What are they, minus 300, something like that?
Mm.
The plus 1.5 handicap on Stuttgart is very obtainable, close to even money. And even if they lose the game by 1 goal, you would cash the bet. I think it's just too big of a handicap. Stuttgart are a good team.
Stuttgart getting that 1.5 goal start. That's the lean from Steve in the Bayern Stuttgart game on Saturday. Steve, James, thanks for your company as ever. Good luck to one and all. We keep everyone updated via our X feeds. We've got a reminder of the boys' profit and loss for you on screen. Obviously, the show is in profit for the season, as is the EPL show at the moment. It's been a good start to the season. Let's hope we pick up where we left off with that international break, of course. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European show. We're going to be back next week with plays, picks, hot dogs, and so on. Same game parlays. We've got the live show every single day in the week, of course, at 11 a.m. Eastern. Follow us at Because We Win. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Get your comments in as well. Most of us are always on hand over the weekend to reply if needed. Get your picks and plays in for European action from all of us for today. It is goodbye. We'll see you soon.